You have 5 minutes to get out of my house, you cheating? This is how one of my evenings began. No discussion, no questions, no dramatic movie speech where the husband finally explains everything while emotional piano music plays in the background. Just my wife pointing at the front door like she was ejecting an unruly customer from a Walmart. For a few seconds, I honestly thought she was joking. But she wasn't joking. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start from the beginning. I'm David. I'm 37 years old, and until a few months ago, I thought I had a pretty ordinary life. Erin and I had been together for 17 years and married for 11. We met when we were kids, survived college, survived our first tiny apartment with paper-thin walls and a heater that only worked when it felt emotionally supported, survived job changes, layoffs, family drama. We weren't rich. We weren't struggling either. We had a small house in the suburbs, 2 decent careers, and the kind of routine that most people call boring. Personally, I called it peaceful. Peace is underrated. You don't appreciate it until it packs its bags and leaves without saying goodbye. The funny part? I never cheated on my wife. Not once. I never even came close. I've never been one of those guys who keeps a work wife, flirts with waitresses, or suddenly discovers that buying a motorcycle is somehow the cure for turning 35. The wildest thing I'd done recently was switching from regular coffee to espresso because our annual audit season had arrived. And trust me, espresso was making far more dangerous decisions than I was. If you've never worked through an annual corporate audit, imagine someone deciding that every email you've sent for the past year should now become everyone's problem. Every report suddenly matters. Every spreadsheet has a mysterious error. Every manager starts every sentence with, "Quick question." It's never a quick question. It's a 30-minute meeting disguised as optimism. For about 3 weeks, I was getting home later than usual. Nothing insane. Usually around 8 instead of 6. Sometimes closer to 9. I'd text Erin whenever I knew I'd be late. Still at work, audit chaos. She'd usually reply with something simple. "Okay," or "Drive safe." Nothing felt different. Nothing seemed wrong. Looking back now, I keep replaying those weeks in my head, wondering if I missed something. Some sign, some conversation, some moment where everything quietly started falling apart while I was busy arguing with Excel. Maybe there was one. Maybe there wasn't. Either way, I never imagined that staying late to fix spreadsheets would eventually cost me my marriage. Life has a weird sense of humor. One week you're explaining expense reports. A month later you're apartment hunting because someone decided spreadsheets were more convincing than 17 years together. And believe me, that's somehow not even the stupidest part of this story. The whole thing started with a new hire. Her name was Olivia. She was 29, had just transferred from another branch, and landed in our department at exactly the wrong time. The audit was less than a month away. Everyone was overworked, everyone was stressed, and our manager walked into my office with the smile people wear when they're about to volunteer someone else's free time. "David," he said, "I need a favor." Whenever your boss starts a sentence with "I need a favor," start preparing to lose at least 10 hours of your life, probably more. We need someone to get Olivia up to speed before the audit. I looked around the office. Half my co-workers suddenly became very interested in their monitors. One guy actually put on his headphones without any music playing. Cowards. Apparently, I'd made the mistake of having a reputation for being patient. That reputation finally came back to bite me. "Sure," I said. "Great," my manager replied far too quickly, as if he was afraid I'd change my mind. And just like that, I became the unofficial tour guide for our department. To be fair, Olivia made the job easy. She asked smart questions, took notes, didn't pretend to know things she didn't know. If she made a mistake, she'd admit it instead of blaming the software, Mercury being in retrograde, or whatever excuse people come up with these days. Honestly, she was probably one of the easiest people I'd ever trained. The problem wasn't Olivia, the problem was the calendar. Because thanks to the audit, a normal 8-hour workday had quietly evolved into something that felt suspiciously illegal. Most evenings, the office looked like the last survivors of civilization. Cold coffee, empty energy drink cans, people staring at spreadsheets like they were trying to decode ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. Around 7 or 8 o'clock, someone would eventually sigh and ask, "Anybody else hungry?" That was usually the signal that we'd all been there far too long. A couple of times, Olivia and I walked across the street to the little coffee shop next to our building. Not because we were on some secret date, because the office coffee tasted like someone had filtered hot water through a burnt shoe. We'd bring our laptops, order coffee, sometimes a sandwich, spend another hour fixing reports before heading home. That was it. No flirting, no touching, no lingering eye contact, no romantic tension. Unless you've ever watched two exhausted office workers argue over missing invoice numbers. Looking back now, I realize how it must have looked to someone driving by. A man, a younger woman, coffee after work, laptops open on the table. Every now and then we'd laugh about something stupid the accounting software had done. Out of context? Yeah, I can see why someone might assume the worst. The problem is, nobody ever bothered asking for the context. At home, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, at least not to me. I'd walk through the front door, toss my keys into the little bowl by the hallway, and immediately apologize for being late. "Long day?" Aaron would ask. "The spreadsheet union decided to go on strike," I'd say. Or, "I spent 40 minutes trying to figure out why one number refused to match. Turns out I was looking at last year's report." She'd roll her eyes. "Only you could lose an argument to a spreadsheet." "Hey," I'd reply, "I eventually won." "Barely." That was us, or so I thought. She never asked about Olivia, never asked who I was staying late with, never acted jealous. If anything, she seemed more concerned that I wasn't getting enough sleep. A couple of times she'd leave dinner in the oven because she knew I'd get home after she'd already eaten. Another night she texted me around 7. "Don't forget to eat something." I sent back a picture of the world's saddest turkey sandwich from the coffee shop. She replied with 3 laughing emojis and, "I'm making you a real dinner this weekend. See why I didn't think anything was wrong? Neither would you." If your spouse laughs at your pathetic sandwich choices, that's generally considered a positive sign. Then, little things started changing. Not all at once, just enough that I noticed and immediately ignored them. One evening I walked in and kissed her on the cheek. She smiled, but it felt shorter. You know how you can tell when someone's smile ends half a second too early? That. Another night I asked if she wanted to watch a movie. She said she was tired and went to bed before 10, which wasn't exactly suspicious. People get tired, especially adults with jobs. Especially adults who have reached the magical age where sleeping until 9 on a Saturday somehow counts as living dangerously. So I didn't think much of it. Then came Thursday. I got home a little after 8. Erin was sitting on the couch. The TV was on, but she wasn't watching it. She looked up when I walked in. "Hey." "Hey." Something about her voice felt off, not angry. Just colder. I hung my jacket up. "Everything okay?" "Yeah." "You sure?" She shrugged. "Just tired." There it was again. Tired. Apparently both of us were exhausted for completely different reasons. I sat down beside her. We watched whatever crime show happened to be on. After about 20 minutes, Erin excused herself and went upstairs. I stayed on the couch for another few minutes. I remember thinking, she's probably just stressed. That was my superpower back then. I could explain away absolutely anything. Late nights, audit season, short answers, she's tired, awkward silence, everyone has bad days. Looking back, I wasn't seeing red flags. I was seeing puzzle pieces and refusing to put them together. The funny thing is, while I was busy convincing myself everything was fine, someone else was already building a completely different story about me. and I had absolutely no idea it had already begun. The audit finally reached that wonderful stage where everyone started believing sleep was optional. By the end of the third week, nobody in our department looked human anymore. People stopped asking each other how they were doing. The answer was always the same: tired. Someone brought donuts one morning. Nobody even got excited. That's how you know morale has officially died. Even Olivia, who had started the month smiling at everyone, now looked like she'd personally been betrayed by Microsoft Excel. One evening, after we'd spent nearly an hour trying to figure out why two reports refused to match, she leaned back in her chair and rubbed her temples. "I swear this spreadsheet hates me." "It doesn't hate you," I said without looking up from my screen. "It hates everyone equally." She laughed. "I was hoping you'd say something encouraging." "I did." "No, you basically said the spreadsheet is emotionally unavailable." "It is." She pointed at my monitor. "How are you so calm?" "Oh, I'm not calm." I clicked another cell. "I've just reached the acceptance stage." "The acceptance stage?" "Yeah." "What's that?" "I've accepted that Excel is smarter than I am." She laughed again. "That's surprisingly healthy." No, healthy would have been choosing another career. Those little conversations were about as exciting as things ever got between us. Work, coffee, complaining about work, more work. If someone had secretly recorded every conversation we had after 5 o'clock, the biggest scandal they'd uncover would be our mutual hatred for conditional formatting. Around 7:30, Olivia closed her laptop. "I'm starving." "Same." "The coffee shop?" I looked at the clock. "We still have another report to finish." "Exactly." She smiled. "We'll suffer somewhere with better coffee." Fair point. 5 minutes later, we were sitting at our usual table by the window. Laptops open. 2 coffees, 1 turkey sandwich for me, a grilled chicken wrap for her. Very glamorous. We spent the next 45 minutes fixing numbers, comparing invoices, and trying to remember who had approved one purchase order 3 months earlier. At one point, Olivia frowned at her screen. "I think I broke it." "You say that every day." "And every day I'm right." I leaned over to look at her laptop. "No, you just filtered the wrong column." "Oh." She sighed dramatically. I was already preparing my resignation speech. I would have kept it short. "Oh? Sorry. Excel won." She burst out laughing loud enough that a couple at the next table glanced over. "You're terrible." "I've been told." Honestly, it was one of the most ordinary evenings imaginable. If someone had asked me to describe it the next morning, I probably would have forgotten half of it. That's how insignificant it felt. What I didn't know was that, at some point while we were sitting there, someone outside slowed down just enough to look through the cafe window. Rachel, Aaron's best friend. I didn't see her. Olivia didn't see her. Rachel, however, saw exactly what she expected to see. A husband, a younger woman, coffee after work, smiling, laughing, me leaning over to help her with something on her laptop. From the sidewalk, it probably looked like the beginning of a romantic comedy. The only problem was, she never stayed long enough to hear us arguing over missing invoice numbers, or complaining about our manager, or joking that we'd both probably dream about spreadsheets that night. She saw maybe 30 seconds of our evening, then she walked away. And somehow, those 30 seconds became more believable than 11 years of my marriage. Of course, I had no idea any of that had happened. I finished my coffee, closed my laptop, said goodbye to Olivia in the parking lot. She drove one way, I drove the other. That was our entire scandal. On the way home, I even stopped at a grocery store because Aaron had texted me earlier that afternoon. "Can you grab milk? We're almost out." That's the thing about ordinary life. It's painfully ordinary. You don't stop to appreciate those little texts because you assume there will be thousands more. I grabbed the milk, a loaf of bread. Her favorite dark chocolate because it happened to be on sale. Not because I was trying to score husband points. Okay, maybe a little. Marriage is basically a long-term competition of small gestures. You buy chocolate. She remembers your favorite coffee creamer. You fold the laundry. She pretends not to notice you loaded the dishwasher like a complete idiot. Balance is important. I got home a little after 8:30. Erin was already in the kitchen. She smiled when I handed her the grocery bag. You remembered. I remembered because you texted me 3 times. I texted you once. Really? She held up her phone. Once. Huh. I pulled out mine. Turns out she'd been right. I'd like to formally apologize for accusing you of excessive texting. Accepted. She laughed. A real laugh. The kind that reaches someone's eyes. If you had shown me that exact moment and asked me to guess where we'd be a week later, I would have told you that you were insane. We ate dinner together, talked about work. She complained about one of her clients changing their mind halfway through a project. I complained that our accounting software had somehow developed a personal grudge against me. She asked whether the audit was almost over. Just a little more, I said. Then I'll finally remember what my own couch looks like. I was beginning to think you moved into your office. I considered it. Does it at least have a better coffee machine? No. Then stay here. The next morning was Saturday. Finally, no alarm, no spreadsheets, no conference calls disguised as quick check-ins. Erin was already awake when I wandered into the kitchen, looking like I'd just survived a natural disaster. She slid a mug of coffee toward me. You look awful. I choose to believe that's a compliment. The coffee? Yes. We spent most of Saturday doing absolutely ordinary married couple things. We bought groceries, argued for 5 minutes over whether we actually needed another set of storage containers. On Sunday, we visited her parents for dinner. Her mom insisted I looked too skinny. Her dad asked about work. I told him the audit was almost over. He laughed. They said that every year before I retired. That's encouraging. Get used to disappointment. Classic Frank. The weekend ended, Monday arrived, the audit entered its final stretch, and the late nights continued. Looking back, I think Monday was when something changed. Not with me, with Erin. I just didn't realize it yet. That evening I got home a little after 8. She was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone. Normally, she'd look up the second she heard the front door. This time, she didn't. Not immediately. It was only a second or two. A tiny pause. The kind of thing you normally wouldn't even notice. But when I kissed her on the forehead, she seemed distracted. You okay? I asked. Yeah. You sure? Mm-hmm. That was it. No smile. No follow-up question about work. No joke about my exhausting romance with spreadsheets. Just, I told myself she was tired. Because that's what people in happy marriages do. They give each other the benefit of the doubt. Unfortunately, someone else had already started taking that benefit away. Monday turned into Tuesday. Tuesday became Wednesday. I was still getting home late, still texting Erin whenever I knew I'd missed dinner, still assuming everything was fine. What I didn't know was that Rachel had already planted a seed. I found that out much later. Apparently, sometime after seeing Olivia and me at the coffee shop, Rachel called Erin. Not to ask questions. Not to say she might have misunderstood what she'd seen. No. She'd called with the confidence of someone reporting breaking news. I don't know exactly what words she used. I wasn't on that phone call. But judging by everything that happened afterward, they were probably somewhere along the lines of, I didn't want to be the one to tell you this. Which is usually how people begin a sentence that's about to make someone else's life considerably worse. The problem with rumors is that they don't arrive alone. They immediately start recruiting evidence. Suddenly, every late night becomes suspicious. Every text message means something. Every coincidence transforms into proof. Looking back now, I think that's exactly what happened. Because Erin started noticing things she'd ignored for weeks. Or maybe she'd noticed them before and simply trusted me. Now, Trust had competition. On Thursday afternoon, my phone rang while I was reviewing expense reports. It was Erin. I smiled before answering. Hey. Hey. Her voice sounded perfectly normal. Too normal. Are you working late again? Probably another hour or two. Oh, I know, I'm sorry. No, it's okay. There was a brief pause. So, who's staying late with you? It was such an ordinary question that I didn't think twice. Most of the team. I named a few coworkers. Mike's still here. Angela, Olivia, our manager. Honestly, I probably listed half the department. There wasn't a reason not to. Everything was out in the open. Oh, Erin said again. Okay. You all right? Yeah. Just checking. We hung up. The conversation lasted maybe a minute. I went right back to work. At the time, I thought absolutely nothing of it. Later, I realized she'd only cared about one name on that list. Olivia. That evening, around 7, Olivia walked over to my desk carrying 2 folders. I fixed the vendor report. Already? I think so. You think? She made a face. I was trying to sound humble. I opened the file. She'd actually fixed every issue I'd marked earlier. I looked up. You know. What? You're officially going to survive this audit. She threw both hands into the air. I'd like that in writing. I'll print you a certificate. Congratulations. You have successfully survived corporate misery. She laughed. That was the entire interaction. 30 seconds. Maybe 40. Completely harmless. But if someone had walked by at exactly that moment, they would have seen a younger woman laughing at something I said, and me smiling back. Funny how context works. Live through the moment and it's forgettable. Freeze it into a single image, and suddenly people start writing their own story. Mine was already being written. I just hadn't been invited to read the first chapter yet. The next evening was Friday. The audit was finally over. Everyone in the office looked like we'd just survived a natural disaster. Our manager thanked the team, promised us a quiet week, and everyone laughed, because nobody believed him. Around 6:30, Olivia walked over to my desk. I owe you a coffee, she said. For what? For putting up with me for the last month. You weren't that bad. That's not what your face said during my first week. Fair point. We walked across the street one last time. No laptops this time, no reports, just coffee. She thanked me for helping her through the audit. I told her she'd done most of the work herself. 20 minutes later, we left. She hugged me goodbye. A quick, friendly hug. The kind co-workers give each other after finishing a stressful project. Then we walked to our cars. That was the last time I saw Olivia outside the office. I had no idea someone else had seen us too. When I pulled into my driveway, something immediately felt wrong. The porch light was on. The living room light was on. But Erin wasn't waiting by the window like she usually was whenever I got home late. I grabbed my laptop bag, picked up the groceries I'd bought on the way home, and walked inside. The moment I opened the front door, I knew. The air felt different. You know that feeling? When nobody has said a word yet, but somehow your brain already knows you're in trouble. Erin was standing in the living room, arms crossed. She wasn't crying. She wasn't yelling. She was just staring at me. I smiled anyway. Hey. She didn't answer. I held up the grocery bag. I got your favorite ice cream. Nothing. I slowly set the bag on the kitchen counter. Everything okay? She finally spoke. Who is she? I blinked. Who? The woman you've been seeing. For a second, I honestly thought she had the wrong person. What are you talking about? She took one step toward me. Stop lying. I am not lying. Rachel saw you. That name finally made something click. Rachel, Erin's best friend. Coffee shop. Friday. Oh, I nodded slowly. You mean Olivia? The fact that you answered that so fast tells me everything. No, I said. It tells you I know who you're talking about. I took a step toward her. Erin, She's a coworker. I know exactly what she is. No, you don't. I hadn't even finished that sentence before she cut me off. I know you've been meeting her after work. Because we've been working. Liar. I stared at her. Not because she'd accused me. Because she'd already decided I was guilty. Nothing I said mattered anymore. Erin, please, I said. Just let me explain. Explain what? She snapped. How you've been sneaking around behind my back? I haven't been sneaking around. Rachel saw you together? She saw us having coffee after work. Exactly. With half the audit still unfinished. You expect me to believe that? Because it's true. She laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind people make when they've already decided every word out of your mouth is another lie. So all those late nights were work? All the text messages about work? The coffee shop? Work. The hugs? I frowned. What hug? Don't insult me, David. It hit me. Olivia had hugged me goodbye after the audit. It had lasted maybe 2 seconds. I rubbed my forehead. That was after we finished the audit. She thanked me for helping train her. Oh, that's a good one. It's the truth. No, Erin said. It's your excuse. I took a deep breath. Call my manager. She blinked. What? Call him. I pulled out my phone. Better yet, I'll call him right now. She slapped my hand away before I could unlock it. I don't need your fake proof. It's not fake. I already know what I saw. You didn't see anything. Rachel did. Rachel saw 30 seconds of my day. That was enough. No, I said quietly. It wasn't. She pointed toward the front door. I've listened enough. No, Erin. I couldn't keep the frustration out of my voice anymore. You've listened to Rachel. For the first time that evening, neither of us spoke. I honestly thought she'd calm down. Instead, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You have 5 minutes to get out of my house, you cheater." I stared at her. You're serious? Dead serious? You're throwing me out without even hearing me? I already heard everything I needed to hear. No, I said. You heard Rachel. I heard enough. That was the moment something inside me changed. Not because she'd accused me. People say terrible things when they're angry. But because she refused to even consider that she might be wrong. The verdict had already been delivered. The trial never happened. I looked at her for another few seconds, waiting, hoping she'd take it back. She didn't. Instead, she repeated herself. You have 5 minutes. I nodded once. Okay. That seemed to catch her off guard. I think she expected me to argue, to beg, to swear I was innocent for the 100th time. Instead, I walked upstairs. I grabbed a duffel bag and threw in a few days' worth of clothes, my laptop charger, some toiletries, and a pair of jeans. From downstairs, she yelled, "That's it? You're not even going to deny it anymore?" I stopped for a second. I've been denying it for the last 20 minutes. No answer. Just silence. I zipped the bag. I picked up my car keys. As I reached the front door, Erin was waiting there, arms crossed. So that's it? I looked at her. What exactly do you want me to do? Tell me the truth. I already did. She shook her head. No. You just didn't believe it. Another long silence. Finally, I opened the door. I hope Rachel was worth 11 years of marriage. Her face hardened. Don't you dare blame Rachel. I stepped outside. I'm blaming the person who trusted her more than me. Then I left. That night, I checked into a hotel a few miles away. Nothing fancy, just somewhere to sleep. I honestly believed she'd call. Maybe after an hour, maybe after she'd calmed down, maybe she'd realized she'd overreacted. I left my phone on the nightstand, volume all the way up. I barely slept. Every time the screen lit up, I grabbed it. Spam email, weather alert, low balance notification from my coffee rewards app. Everything except Erin. By morning, I realized something. She hadn't thrown me out because she'd lost control. She'd thrown me out because she'd meant every word. The next morning, I went back to the house while Aaron was at the gym. I still had my key. I wasn't trying to sneak in. I just wanted the rest of my clothes and a few personal things. I packed another suitcase, my passport, some documents. While I was loading the car, my phone rang. Aaron. I answered immediately. For one stupid second, I thought she was calling to apologize. Instead, she said, "Did you come back?" "Yeah, I grabbed a few things." "You could have waited until I got home, so we could have the same argument again?" Silence. Then she said, "I hope she's worth it." I closed my eyes. "Aaron, I'm not doing this." "You already did." She hung up. That was the moment I stopped expecting an apology. On Monday, I rented a small apartment. Nothing special. 1 bedroom, 2nd floor. Enough space for a bed, a couch, and the realization that silence sounds very different when you're alone. I changed my mailing address, moved my paycheck to my personal account, called a lawyer to ask what my options were, not because I wanted a divorce, because I needed to know what happened if this became one. For the next few days, Aaron only contacted me about practical things. Bills, mail. Who was picking up the rest of my clothes? Not once did she ask, "Can we talk?" Not once did she ask, "Is there something I don't know?" She still believed Rachel. Then, about a week later, my friend Kevin called. "Dude," his voice sounded awkward. "I've got to ask." "Ask what?" "Is it true?" I frowned. "What?" "You and some girl from work." I sat there in silence. "Who told you that?" "People are talking." "Who?" Another pause. "I heard it started with Rachel." That's when I realized the story hadn't stayed inside my marriage. It had already spread. The next day, I finally learned how the truth came out. My manager called me into his office, not because of work, because he'd run into Aaron the night before. "I didn't realize your wife stopped by," he said. I frowned. "She did?" "Yeah." She looked upset. "What did she want?" He hesitated. "She asked me if Olivia had been working late with you." I already knew where this was going. "What did you tell her?" "The truth." He shrugged. "I told her you were helping train the new hire for the audit. That you stayed late because I asked you to. That half the department was here most nights." I just nodded. There wasn't much else to say. Later that afternoon, one of my co-workers stopped by my desk. I heard what happened. "News travels fast." He shook his head. "I told your wife the same thing." "What?" "She called Angela." Apparently Aaron hadn't stopped with my manager. She'd called 2 other people from the office. Every single one of them told her exactly the same story. Olivia was new, I was training her. The late nights were real, the audit was brutal. There was never anything romantic between us, not even close. That evening, my phone rang. It was Aaron. I answered. Neither of us spoke for a few seconds. Finally, she whispered, "Can we talk?" It was the first time she'd asked. We met the following evening, not at the house. I wasn't ready for that. We met at a small park halfway between my apartment and our old neighborhood. Erin looked exhausted. Her eyes were red. She didn't even try to pretend she'd been sleeping. The moment she saw me, she started crying. "I'm sorry." I didn't answer. I was wrong. Still nothing. "I talked to your manager." She wiped her eyes. "I talked to Angela. And Mike. They all told me the same thing." I nodded. "They told you the truth." She looked down. "I called Rachel." "What did she say?" Erin hesitated. "She admitted she assumed the worst." I let out a slow breath. "She assumed." Erin nodded. "And I believed her." Another silence. Finally, she looked at me. I was scared. I thought I was losing my husband. And I lost my wife. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. That hurt her more than anything I'd said. "Please," she whispered. "Come home." I shook my head. You threw me out. I know. You didn't ask me a single question. I know. You didn't let me finish one sentence. She covered her face. I know. I looked at her for a long moment before speaking. If you had asked me one question, I would have answered it. You didn't lose me because you thought I cheated. You lost me because you decided I was guilty before you ever heard my side. Erin broke down completely. I'm so sorry. I should have listened. She kept crying. I'll do anything. Come home. I'll cut Rachel out of my life. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. For the first time since we'd met, I honestly didn't know what to say. Because I believed her. She was sorry, truly sorry. But that wasn't the problem anymore. The problem was that every time I closed my eyes, I kept hearing the same sentence. You have 5 minutes to get out of my house, you cheater. I looked at Erin. I need time. How much? I don't know. Please. I can't come home pretending none of this happened. I know. I took a deep breath. The woman I married would have asked me one question before throwing me out. You didn't. You chose a rumor over me. She nodded through tears. I know. I don't know if I can forget that. She started crying even harder. I walked away, not because I stopped loving her, because I couldn't trust her anymore. And love without trust is just two people sharing the same address. I moved back to my apartment. We still talk. She's trying. She ended her friendship with Rachel. She apologizes every time we meet. Maybe one day we'll find our way back to each other. Maybe we won't. I honestly don't know. What I do know is this. If your spouse ever gives you a reason to worry, ask the question. Have the conversation. Demand the truth if you have to. But don't destroy your marriage over a story someone else told you. Because rebuilding trust takes far longer than destroying it. And sometimes, the hardest thing to forgive isn't the accusation. It's realizing the person you loved never gave you the chance to answer it. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.